And speaking of a dynamic experience, just yesterday, I mentioned that it was National Black Bookstore Day. National Black Bookstore Day. Well, here on A More Perfect Union, we celebrate Black books. We celebrate Black bookstores every single day. And I guarantee you that by the end of this hour, I'm going to give you not one, but two reasons to run to your Black bookstore and pick up these two books. I'm going to give you two reasons to pick up this book and then maybe even pick up another for somebody else. They're that good. Kicking us off this hour, I am honored to be in conversation with Darnell Lamont Walker. He is the author of Never Can Say Goodbye, The Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End. Darnell, welcome to the show.
There we go. I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here, man. I just realized today that yesterday was Black Bookstore Day. So we're going to celebrate this all week.
That's right. Well, look, here on this show, we celebrate this every day. And so you are in the right place. You're in good company. For our leaders, learners, and listeners that find the title of your book a bit jarring, can you explain to us what exactly is a death doula?
Yeah, so a death doula is someone who helps a person through the transition, through whether that's practically, emotionally, spiritually, just helping someone at the end of life. And that's the essential definition, the basic definition. But overall, we're there to come in and say, listen, how do you want this to go? I want to help you get as close to the death that you want as possible. Yeah.
And what's so interesting, and I really have enjoyed reading this book. It's been a great respite from some of the national news headlines that have been swirling because it feels so personal. Mm-hmm. There's so many stories of real people. You almost go out of your way as an author to name them, to extend a level of dignity to them, even in spirit.
Oh, absolutely. I highly believe in dignity in death, but also it was a way for me to say thank you to those folks who allowed me to come at the end of their life and to be there in that space with them in those very sacred moments, in a way to really honor them. These are folks who, didn't want to be forgotten, who wanted to leave something behind, who wanted their lives to mean something. And me as someone who, like, I honor them as a witness to those lives. Like, I think we all are witnesses. We're all observers. And so if this is how if I could write it down in something that I hope will live forever, then, thank you to them.
Yeah. Well, thank you to you for this incredible work. On page 62 in the chapter entitled Black Men Don't Grieve for Themselves, you write, Black men don't grieve for themselves and they don't mourn the coming end of their life. As of this writing, I've never been called to be a caregiver, to sit vigil, to advocate for, or to hold the hand of a Black man by a Black man himself. Mm-hmm. I want to unpack this when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Darnell Lamont Walker, the author of Never Can Say Goodbye, The Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while. We are joined with author Darnell Lamont Walker. He's the author of Never Can Say Goodbye. See it? I have it right here, my copy right here. I have been enjoying it very much so. This is the Life of a Death Doula and the Art of a Peaceful End. Darnell, you dedicate a whole chapter on Black men, and you say Black men don't grieve for themselves. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've growing up a Black boy who became a Black man, growing up in the community, we put on this front too often where we have to be the strong one, where we have to be the rock for the family. We put our own grieving aside. And like you said before we went to break, I've never been called in by a Black man to be there at the end of his life. Thankfully, I've been called in by the wives of Black men, by the daughters of Black men, to come, because they've seen how their father, their husband, puts on this armor even at the end of their life, and trying to be the strong one when it's them who's leaving. And it's like, no, you can feel these things. You can have these emotions. You can be vulnerable. You can let go if you need to let go. And I come in and I create that space for them, because we don't do that. I come from my father, who will not talk about death, will not have these conversations, will likely never listen to this interview. But really? I learned this work from his mother. So it skipped, so it kind of skipped this generation. But my father is like, I don't want to talk about that. Not even his own death. Like, the extent of death planning is, here's my insurance policy. You're the beneficiary. That's the end, and it's, no, like, grief doesn't leave, grief doesn't, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't disappear. It just, it transforms into so many other things. It manifests in many other ways in our bodies, in our relationships. And so we have to get to the grieving so we can get to the joy, so we can get to the living even,
In this chapter, you talk about an exchange you have with one of your friends, Shayna, and in the book, Shayna sort of refers to your gift as being a medium, and you write about how you still haven't fully accepted that label. Mm-hmm. Given the book is out and people are talking, are you accepting it more fully now?
I'm now learning how to hone this gift. I haven't fully still taken on this. I am a medium. I've had many experiences, and when they've come, I never ignored them. I never avoided them, and I will fully give into the moment. But taking on the title isn't something that I've been comfortable with yet. Mm-hmm. But I've sat down with mediums who are showing me the way, in a way, and helping me hone this skill.
In this chapter, you write about an experience that you had, mm-hmm. Where, on the other side, I guess you were confronted with a number of spirits, particularly Black men. A long line of Black men showed up. Can you tell that story? Because when I read it, I had to put your book down because it was so moving to me.
Yeah.
The experience that we have walking through this world as Black men and how much we hold. Yeah. And reading this story, how much Black men still hold on the other side.
It's so much, so the story, in a nutshell, my friend Sheena that you mentioned, she is a medium. She accepts it. But she came to me and knowing, what I've seen. And she says, hey, I have a friend who died recently. His name is John. He won't come to me. Could you see if he'll come to you? And I tell her, I say, no, because I've never asked anyone to come. These spirits that I've seen have just shown up, and I don't want to know if I can do that. And she says, well, if you could just see. And so that night I wrote, John, if there's anything you need to deliver, Sheena wants to know if you're okay, you can use me. And then I said, as a matter of fact, and this is me journaling, and I said, as a matter of fact, if anyone needs to use me in grief or any of this, please come and I will be here for you. And a long line of Black men showed up to say, I never got to grieve myself. I had to be the strong one. And I remember being so angry, saying, well, who told you had to be the strong one? Who made you do that? Why didn't you cry? Who told you couldn't cry? And I was able to be this sort of a vehicle for them to do just that, to cry, to be emotional, to, do the things that they didn't allow themselves to do because they thought that they had to be something for someone else. And it was like, no, you have the right to do this for yourself. And a lot of the work I do now, and that helps shape so much of the work I do now, because like I said, I think even maybe now there's been one Black man who's called me in since writing the book. But, you know, in those times when, you know, that wasn't the case, it was, I'm here to let you cry. If it's just me and you in this room, you need to let go. I know you may not want to do it in front of your wife. You may not want to do it in front of your mother, your daughter, whoever, but you can cry. And just to see them do it and to see this weight just come off, you know, this armor that they've had for 60, 70, 30 years. I mean, it's a sight to see. And I think we should all aim for that, aim to be that vulnerable in spaces.
I mean, that is, let me tell you, y'all, if you don't read not any chapter in this book, read the chapter on Black men and how we don't grieve for ourselves. You know, I've got to ask you, what are those calls like when somebody summons the courage to pick up the phone or to send that email, that communication to you to say, hey, I think I'm ready to talk. What's that like?
Yeah, it's they're all very different. You know, sometimes it's from a friend who says, I don't know what I can do for my friend who's about to lose her mom. You know, could you have that conversation? I've had the call where a daughter was about to lose her mom, and she says, I don't know how to have the difficult conversations with her that I know I need to have, but I don't know how to do that. And then if it's from the person, you know, I've had many from the person themselves who say, I'm dying soon and I want to leave something behind, but no one I know, no one in my family wants to talk about it. They don't want to talk about this death with me. They haven't accepted it like I've accepted it. And I'm afraid that I'm going to die alone because of that. And so I come in and I find out how they want this to go, how they want this ending to be. And I do my best to make that happen. I figure out, what conversations haven't you had with your mom yet? And sometimes, you know, it's them leaving me in the room with their mom for me to have that conversation and then to be the mediator and bring them together before the end. And thankfully, because otherwise they could have reached the end and now they're living with the regret of, oh, I should have brought that up. I forgot to ask that. I needed an apology. I needed the recipe for this macaroni and cheese, whatever that is. But it's different every time. I'm grateful. I've been called by nurses who have clients who they say, you know, my client can't speak. They're paralyzed and they can only hear out of one ear. Could you come? And it's, what do you want me to do? And they say, I hope you can figure it out. We don't know. And it's me just going up there and massaging that patient's scalp for 2 hours, you know. But it's different every time. But I'm so grateful, because a big part of a big goal of mine is to make sure that no one dies alone, and that we get the death we want, and we can leave out of this place as beautifully as we possibly can, if that's an option, you know, and leaving and not be forgotten.
Not be forgotten. Look, one thing I have never forgotten is the movie Ghost. It's one of my favorite movies. And I've got to ask you, just as I was reading, I'm like, I wonder if when he's visited by spirits on the other side, you know, and you make yourself available, is it sort of like an Oda Mae Brown experience? That was the character that Whoopi Goldberg played in Ghost.
Love that movie also. No, you know, it's strange. It's hard to describe. It's not, I guess that might be, actually, I was about to say no, but thinking to when, you know, Wilbur comes to her at that table, right? And he just kind of takes over her body. It's not so much as dramatic as that, but it is that. Like when those Black men came, they just, like, I was sitting on the floor and they just sat down in me and just said, can I cry? And then would just cry. And it was sort of me watching them from the outside of me. And so it's hard to describe, but that's probably as close of as far as TV or film goes that I can describe it. Sometimes you don't see them physically. It's more of a very spiritual knowing that they are there and who they are. I've had a friend's father came to me who I'd never met. His father died decades ago, and he says, I just need you to hug my son for me. And I thought, I don't want to hug, and I'm like, no, I don't want to hug your son. And he's like, please. And I said, if you need to, you can do it. And he just climbs in there and he reaches out for his son, but his son moves. And then I see him leave, and it's a very, emotional state, but I'm grateful that they trust me enough to do that.
Talk to us about just sort of the origin of this gift. You mentioned how you didn't learn it from your dad. You actually learned it from your grandmother. Was your grandmother also a death doula? Was your grandmother, did she identify as a medium?
She was absolutely a death doula. She'd never heard the term before she died, though. Like this is, and this term is not new, but it's this is what Black folks have been doing since the beginning of time, taking care of people we love. This is what it looks like to care for those we love, right? And this is what my grandmother did. She took care of whoever, neighbors, friends, family who came home, people no one else wanted to touch. It was, you can come to my house, I will help you. And so and I knew that I wanted to be that person too. But as far as being a medium, I remember being in college, like growing up, my grandmother would talk about her seeing these spirits in her room. She would talk about these kids that would be in her room, and I would hear her talk, having full conversations. And when I was in college, was the first time as an adult that the spirit came to me. I was in my apartment in college, and later that day I was scared. I was so scared, like thinking back on it. Like in the moment, it wasn't scary at all, but thinking back on it. And I called her and I said, listen, I had these spirits come, I'm scared to go home. And she said, were you scared when they came? I said, no. She said, yeah, they come in peace. She said, but if you ever need them to leave, just ask them to leave. They'll leave. She said, it's nothing to be afraid of. And I thought, okay, good to know. And so the next time it happened was maybe 2 years later. And I woke up and there was one next to my bed. And I just said, could you please just go? And he just turns and walks away. And so we never talked more than that. Like that was the extent of our conversation about, that. But she absolutely had this gift and this ability to hold space for people.
In our remaining minutes with you, Darnell, I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about what you put on page 55, the chapter entitled Grief Ain't Just One Way. If you could leave us with one parting thought that addresses maybe the misconception that some of us hold about what grief really is, what is that?
No, we look at grief as falling apart, as breaking down in a store, but grief is also laughter. It's also joy. It's also happiness and gardening and running a few miles and being in community with family. It doesn't have to, like so often we say, I haven't grieved yet for this person I love. What's wrong with me? And you probably have. It just didn't look the way you thought it was going to look. And so look at what you've been doing and look at what's changed since you lost that person. That's grief too. And yeah, that's that's what I have about that. And just to let people know that we've all done this work. We've all cared for someone, and it may not have been at the end of life. It may have just been at the end of a relationship, at the loss of a job. But we've all held space. We've all held the hand, patted someone on the back, gave a shoulder to a friend. Like, this is the work. What I do doesn't take some special power or ability. It's just love for our friends and family and neighbors.
Well, we feel the love on every page. Really, this book, it feels like a warm cup of tea. It feels like chicken soup. It feels fortifying. It feels like a work that helps us to get rooted, particularly in times where we sometimes feel untethered. And all I can say is run, don't walk. Run, don't walk. To pick up this fine work, Never Can Say Goodbye by Darnell Lamont Walker. I hope to see this as a documentary or a film of some sorts, because the characters that you write about in this book, they linger. They linger. It feels like you carry them with you. And so thank you, Darnell. And
I appreciate
please come back again soon. Anytime.
Anytime.
Talk 50.